Let's be honest guys, majority of mixing tips are kinda the same. Use this EQ setting, cut low frequencies inside, compress with this attack settings, and so on. But in today's video, I will show you some more unique or unusual ways to level up your mix or just to process your sounds. So without any further ado, let's get right into them. We all been taught to use only good quality sounds or shape the sound to be as clean as possible. While all of this is true, sometimes it can make your mix sound lifeless and without any character at all. There are various ways to add a little bit of uniqueness. One of the simplest ones are adding imperfections like noise, tape hiss, or vinyl crackle. For that reason, you can use plugins like RC20, Isotope Vinyl, or just add recorded sample in the background. Plugins like those also have wow and flutter option, which is another great thing to add. So let's say we have a very correct piano melody like this. Adding static or dynamic noise will add character and background ambience. By using wow and flutter, you can attract the listener by adding consistent movement and a good old tape character. Funny thing is that we are now looking for the sound that the engineers from the past were trying to get away from. Following the path of imperfections, don't be afraid to push distortion to the limit or add a little bit of creative clipping. If you take a look at some trending genres, like for example drift funk, you may think that it was made by producers who have no idea how to mix. Although it turns out that it became a signature effect, and without it, things don't sound the same. Speaking of another use of destroying sounds, if you listen to some Skrillex's tracks, he uses a lot of overly distorted sounds, but with the context in mind. And it is completely fine to clip or distort as long as you not get carried away by it. If you don't have an option to change the sound, re-record the part, use distortion to mask some imperfections and maybe fit a little bit more in the mix. Adding glue with reverb. Yeah, you heard that right. Tell me, how many times you had all your mixing points checked? Right amount of mix bus glue, yet your mix sounded like instruments recorded in completely different rooms. We all like to get carried away by the amount of different reverb plugins and unique spatial effects. But the truth is that applying too many of them, especially if they all have different settings, will most likely destroy your mix. So how to use reverb as a gluing tool? It is as simple as picking one main reverb and sending majority of instruments to it. Of course, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use different ones to achieve some creative effects. But having 1 to 2 main reverb sends will prevent you from overcompressing and struggling with gluing your mix. So the other more controversial technique is sending mixbus or placing reverb directly on it. The main problem with it is that by any cost, you should prevent low frequencies from being affected. For that purpose, use either a built-in or separate EQ before driving signal into it. If you're gonna use reverb directly on a bus, use only very subtle amount of it, as well as short decay time. Upward expansion on certain mix elements. If you're intermediate or professional producer or mixer, you should already know about it. Yet if you have no idea what I'm talking about, pay close attention. Upward expansion is essentially the opposite of compression. Instead of decreasing louder elements, it increases them. It is great for adding bite and punchiness, but chances are you want to target specific frequencies. With that in mind, I'm using expand mode in Animate. First step is to focus on what you want to expand by creating a bandwidth filter slider. You can set effect for mid, side, or stereo image. I'm gonna use mid signal. Next, play with threshold to catch sounds you want to expand. If you want to dive deeper into settings, Use Listen button to hear only the affected signal. Fast attack will push up transients more. Just like with regular compression, set the release time to be as musical as possible. So the overall moral of this story is: don't be afraid to experiment. Although you should generally follow the best mixing practice, there are some situations where you need to think outside of the box. As always, if you want to know more about mixing, mastering, and music production, make sure to subscribe to our channel and watch our other videos.